This is session 3. So I think about 2 weeks now we've been talking about the roles and responsibility of of a BA. So we discussed stakeholder identification and analysis, and also discussed on the investigation. And last week we discussed on the purpose of investigation and the types of investigation techniques that you can actually use. And last week we discussed on the interviews, how you can carry out interviews, what are the things that you need to actually note on during your interview, how you can prepare, for the interviews as well. So, but today we'll be looking into one of the investigation techniques, workshop. So because workshop is one of the main techniques that you can use to actually carry out your requirement gathering session, and to collaborate together with the stakeholders. So we'll discuss that today. So now we discussed about the workshop, the roles that you have in the workshop. So when you want to actually have your workshop, so there are two main roles that you have. So you have the attendee and the facilitator. And as you were told last week, if last week or first week as well, so we mentioned that the BA, you facilitate workshop. So the business analyst will be the facilitator of that workshop. And the attendees will be, your stakeholders that you want to gather your requirements from, that you want to discuss with. So those are the two roles. Although there are sometimes that you have like scribe, somebody that will take meeting. To be honest, that is not common. I've never had any other person taking notes for me. So the main roles are the facilitator and the attendees. So as a BA, so you will be the facilitator, and the attendees will be, the people that you invite, to that workshop. And sometimes in a project, sometimes if you actually have a big project, sometimes maybe you may have 2 BAs or 3 BAs, business analysts carrying out the same workshop together. So it depends on the project, and it depends on if you are assigned, if they have signed maybe about 3 BAs, business analysts, to the project. So if it's going to be a big workshop, so you may have to work together, the business analysts on that project may have to work together. So some people may be doing some other tasks, while you have a main person that will be maybe doing the talking, and maybe another person will be doing the, taking notes. So it depends on the project. So it's possible that you have more than one BA facilitator, on that project, or maybe at the workshop, facilitating the workshop. So, but as a business analyst, regardless whether you're going to have support from other business analysts, or you're going to, co-facilitate the workshop together, you still need to be able to facilitate workshop on your own. Individual, you need to be able to facilitate that without help from anyone. So you need to be able to facilitate the workshop. So that is what you should have in mind. And so the approach, we are talking approach that you can actually use for the workshop. So when you want to carry out the workshop, you need to prepare. So that's the pre-workshop, and then you conduct the workshop, then you have the post-workshop. So there are some things that you need to take notes, before you conduct the workshop, when you are conducting the workshop, and after you actually have the workshop. And the workshop is different from the interviews, because you bring a lot of stakeholders, 2 or more stakeholders together, and it helps to have the discussion, to have that workshop when they have common goal together. So instead of you going to each person and carrying out interview one by one, assuming that you have about 20 people that you need to actually gather requirements from, by the time you start, scheduling time, meeting with each and every one of them to have that interview. So it may take time. It will take a long time, for you to be able to complete that. But the workshop gives you an opportunity to actually bring all of them together, get them together. You discuss it together. Then you can, there are some things that will be maybe cross departments like that. So you'll be able to actually, discuss everything and that is if that particular project, it's related to those stakeholders. Because if the project is not really related, if they have, for example, if you want to, let's say, a CRM system, and you want sales department to be able to use it, you want finance team to be able to use it, you want marketing to be able to use it. So in that sense, you can actually get those three departments together. Then you'll be able to gather their requirement because it's the same system. So but if it's different systems they're actually working on, and so it has nothing to do with maybe one person wants to do a CRM system and you've been assigned a BA to that project, and another person wants to do Business Central, which is a different system. So there's no way you can, do the two together because it's two different things. So definitely they don't have anything in common, for them to be able to come together. So it doesn't work that way. So you just need to bring them together only when they have like a common goal, then it will save time. You can do everything at once. And so that is or the only reason why you do the workshop and get the people together. So for the pre-workshop, so we have so many things. These are the points that I want to discuss. So you need to understand what is the purpose of the workshop, because before you organize or maybe set up this workshop, you need to have the purpose of setting it up. Is it for you to gather the requirements? Is it for you to clarify some requirements that you've gathered from some people? Or is it you want to discuss the processes, or you want to know how they operate within each department? Or definitely you have a purpose. Just like when you have interview with maybe one of the stakeholders, you have a purpose of setting up that meeting. So same here. So for you to be able to have that workshop, definitely you have a purpose, So you need to know the purpose, and you need to be able to determine what is fit. Like I mentioned last week, you need to be able to, determine the investigation technique that actually fits what you are doing. What exactly are you doing? Is it interviewing that is fit, or is it the workshop that is fit for you to use? So you need to determine that. So, but now that you know that, okay, it's workshop that is going to fit for what I'm doing at the moment, because I have a lot of people, that I need to bring together, then now you understand, so why am I bringing them together? So is it to discuss the process? And, definitely you saw that once you know your process or the purpose, then what are the things, outcomes that you want to achieve? So you will be able to know, is it that you want to be able to map a process of how maybe the customer journey, or you want to be, you should have a goal. You should have a goal. You should have what you're expecting to get out of the workshop, or you want to gather the requirement from different, from those stakeholders. So you should have an outcome that you are expecting, that you want to achieve as well. So definitely preparing for the workshop is still what we are talking about. And when you are also preparing, you need to determine the structure of the workshop and like I mentioned, so if it's the investigation technique. So now you know that you're having a workshop. How do you want to, to program the workshop, or how do you want the workshop to be? So Do you want to break them out, maybe to divide them into groups? Because now you know the number of people that you've already invited, and now is it you want to have them in groups, or do you want them to, you want to separate them out, for everyone to work individually, or you want, you need to have a plan, how you want the workshop, to actually how you want to run the workshop. So it's more or less like having an agenda. Let me just put it that way. You have an agenda, what you want to do, during that workshop. And also, we are going to talk about the investigation technique, because the workshop has workshop techniques as well. So whereby you will determine, is it post-it note, is it brainstorming, is it, brainwriting, is it, you need to determine that. You need to know the technique that you want to use during the workshop. Or is it something like Robin Run, you just want them to be calling out the, maybe the requirements for you, definitely you have to determine that. But we are going to discuss about the investigation technique or the workshop technique separate. And also you need to check the availabilities of the stakeholders, because now, assuming that you want to invite about 15 people or 20 people, and like I mentioned last week, when you're sending out invites, you need to, check their calendar, because it won't be, nice if you actually send the invite out. If you send the invite out and somebody tells you, oh, or maybe some people just decline your meeting invite. Oh, they may just tell you something in my diary, I've got a clash, I've got something, you will not really. So that's why it's always good for you to prepare. You actually prepare yourself when you check their calendars. Fine, it could be painful sometimes, it could be time consuming, but at the same time, it's good to make sure you actually check their calendars to make sure they are available. Because imagine you sending out 15 invites and 6 people just turn down the invite. So that would not really be nice. So always check their calendar to see how, when they're available, what you can, if it fits the time, even if everyone will be available, even if it's just 75% of them, or maybe 90% will be available, fine. Then you can still schedule it. But so always check their availabilities of the stakeholders before you actually send out the invite. And also you need to know that you need to invite the appropriate people, appropriate stakeholders to the workshop, because there's no point of inviting somebody that is not really relevant, or maybe that particular workshop is not going to be relevant to the person. So you need to make sure, because based on maybe your meetings or interviewing, or maybe information that you've gathered from the project manager or from business people, or from that is relevant, that you need to invite this person, you need to invite the head of finance, you need to invite the the sales manager or marketing manager, so you'll be able to know the appropriate stakeholder that you need to invite for the workshop, because then that will make it easy for you to gather the requirement, because they have the information you actually want. And also when you send out the invites, and make sure you also include the agenda of the workshop, because sending out and when you are sending out meeting invites, try as much as possible to give them enough notice. I mean, minimum, I will suggest minimum of 5 working days. Minimum of 5 working days. So that they will, because sometimes some people, when you check their calendar, they have something booked for the next maybe 2 weeks, or maybe next 4 days. But so if you plan, ahead, then they would have, they would definitely be able to get slots in their diary. So it's always good to make sure you plan at least minimum of 5 days, because for you to carry out the workshop, you're going to prepare. There are some things that you have to put in place. So it's not something that you just wake up and say, I'm having the workshop next tomorrow, 48 hours or 72 hours. you may not even get anybody that will turn up, and before you can even get the look, maybe the venue itself. So it's something that you need to think about. So always make sure you give them enough notice. So that is why, so it will be beneficial if you actually give them like maybe even 7 days notice, depending on the project time frame as well. So then you'll be able to get slot in their calendar, and they will be able to attend, because if their calendar is free, you will be able to you'll be able to get a slot in there. So always make sure you actually give, or at least send out the invites minimum of 5 days. I will recommend minimum of 5 days. And when you are planning your workshop as well, the day of the week also very important. There are some organizations that for you to even get hold of people on a Friday for interview or for meetings, sometimes it's usually hard. So difficult for, to get hold of people, to meet. And, definitely Friday is like, a day of the week that people just try to, wind down. So they don't even want to have any meeting. They just want to catch up on what they've been doing, or maybe what they need to do for the week. So avoid Friday if possible. Fridays, avoid that if possible. So I would not actually want anybody to actually invite me for a workshop on a Friday as well. So I would not want that. So if possible, try as much as possible to avoid Fridays, because definitely some people probably maybe Friday they work from home, maybe Friday they don't even work on Friday. So as much as possible, try and avoid Friday. But definitely there are some time, maybe depending on the project, that you just have to have it on a Friday. Maybe that's the only available time for every one of them. Then you know that there's no other means or other day to have it. Yeah, that is still okay. And Mondays as well. Monday, people usually busy trying to, plan their week. So most times I try as much as possible to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, but it all depends on the project and the time frame and the availability of the stakeholders. So, but you need to plan the day properly as well. And also, so when you are sending out the meeting invite, try as much as possible to, to include the agenda of the workshop in the meeting invite, because it will help the stakeholder to prepare, to come prepare for the workshop, because some people may even have to come with maybe some documents that they may want to share, or that will actually aid their thinking before prepare them before coming for the workshop, because then they will be able to know that when you are discussing it will not come as a surprise to them, because you've actually given them that awareness. You've actually given them heads up saying, oh, I'm doing this is what we'll be talking about. So that awareness is there, and that will actually help you during the workshop. It will actually help you. And duration of the workshop as well. So the workshop definitely most time is usually more than 1 hour, most times when you're saying workshop, most times, but it could be 1 hour. So it's just because the essence is just to bring everyone together. It could even be maybe 45 minutes depending, but when your workshop is more than 90 minutes, try as much as possible to give them break, because for people to sit down for 90 minutes is a long time. And even if the workshop, because definitely in your meeting invite, you would have indicated in the meeting invite saying you're having the workshop, let's say 9 to 2, or maybe 9 to 1, or 9 to 12. So the duration that you've already planned for that workshop. So what you need to do is to make sure you have a break. You give them like tea break. So maybe like after 90 minutes. So then you can say, okay, can we have a break, maybe 10 or 15 minutes break, depending on the duration, the total duration of the workshop. If it's going to be something about maybe a whole day affair, maybe like 10 to 4 or 10 to 3, 5 hours. So definitely it will be reasonable for you to give them, maybe after 90 minutes, they may have tea break. It could be 10 minutes. Then maybe after 2.5 hours, then when you know that definitely between 12, maybe lunchtime, you can give them 30 minutes break. Saying, okay, so all those things, that's why I said you have to make sure you plan, the day, so that you know that, okay, once this, so you assuming that the workshop is 10 to 3, 5 hours. So now we know that by 11:30, I may give them, oh, could you guys maybe stretch your leg, or if you want to walk around, just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, everyone make sure you come back to the room. Maybe that, let's say that's around 11:30, then you come back 11:40. Then I can say, okay, maybe by 1 o'clock or 12:30, then you can have a proper break, maybe 30 minutes break, depending if you are providing lunch, and if they have to bring their lunch, 30 minutes break, fine. So now, let's say they arrive back by 12:30 or 1:30. Yeah, so then that means they have another 90 minutes to carry on and finish up. So the break is very, very important, because for them to be able to concentrate, to gain their attention. And you don't want people to start saying they have backache, or maybe they want to stretch their legs. So try as much as possible. Nobody would tell you this, but you need to make sure you consider all these things, that when you're having a workshop that is longer than 1 hour, try as much as possible to give them, break as well, for them to have, to stretch their leg or have something to drink or eat as well. And also, so the location of the workshop is also very important. Assume when you are planning the workshop, so you know the number of people, or the number of stakeholders that you've actually invited. Let's say you have about 20. So that means if the venue is going to be in your organization, definitely you have meeting rooms. So, and you need to consider that. So if you now think maybe you don't have a meeting room that can take up to 20, then you may have to have that workshop maybe separate days. Maybe you had the maximum capacity of your meeting room is 10. So that means that you have about 20 people that need to come for the workshop. So that means you have to, have workshop maybe like 2 sets. It could be, definitely it's going to be maybe different days, so that is only 10 that can, because there's no point of putting 20 people in 10 capacity meeting room. No, it's definitely, it can't work. So that is why, so when you are planning the workshop, you need to make sure your room, you book your room, the venue is available, you reserve that. Because if you don't book that and you just send meeting invite and you are saying to be confirmed, that meeting room is still yet to be confirmed. So you don't want to go back to them and say, oh, sorry, I've canceled the meeting because we could not locate the meeting. So always make sure, like, whenever I want to do things like that, I try as much as possible, I'll first find the venue. So is there any meeting room available for me to use? Because there are some days that you may even be thinking that you may even think you want to have it. So the meeting room that you are actually looking to use may not even be available. So I need to work around the availability of that meeting room as well. So that will actually help me to plan the meeting or the meeting invite I'm going to send out to the workshop. So always try and check and make sure you have a venue for that workshop before sending the meeting invite out. I will advise that, although that's not in the book, but I will advise that. Make sure you have your location set before you sending out the meeting invite, so that you can include all the details and the location, the venue for the workshop. So the location of the workshop is very important as well. And because you may have, people coming from another location, because you may have some people that are home based and they work from home, so that they have to come in to the office, maybe for that, for the purpose of the workshop. Some people, if your organization even have some people that work in a different location, let's say outside London, so they may have to, travel maybe like 1 hour or 2 hours, depending on the depending on the location. So imagine somebody, you know, that some people will be coming from far away, you know, definitely, like I've worked in an organization before whereby we had about, I think, 3 different locations. Yeah, I think either 3 or 4. And I know that definitely I have some people that will be coming, you know, from Bristol, so maybe about 3 hours journey. So I need to consider that. So when I'm scheduling the workshop, I'll make sure the earliest time will be around that 10. I don't want to start like, you know, 8:30 or 9, because I know people that will be traveling that will take them about 3 hours to get into London. I don't want them to leave their house 5 a.m. just, or maybe 5:30. No. So I would try as much as possible to give them enough time so that even if they leave, you know, Bristol, maybe 6 o'clock or 6:30, they can still get into London by 9:30, and they can, you know, have time to have a cup of tea before the workshop starts, you know. So sometimes I try as much as possible if I have people coming from different locations. And even not only because people travel down, it could be some people even resume work. They do 10 to 6, you know, or work hours. So it's not everybody that resume 8 or that resume 9. So some people do resume 10. They do 10 to 6, 8 to 4, 9 to 5. So I try as much as possible to accommodate all those, you know, circumstances, because nobody will tell me, oh, I work 10 to 6. Or I work 10 or 8 to 4. But I know anyone that is working between 8 to 4 definitely will be available for 10. So even if you come in at 9, I don't expect you, if I resume my work at 9. So, but I wouldn't expect you to invite me to a meeting starting exactly 9 o'clock. Because by the time I settle down at my desk, and you know, there may be even be train delays or things, you know. So definitely I try as much as possible to, I can now say maybe 9:30 or 10. So your workshop, yeah, you could, you know, depending on the duration, you could try and work around, you know, the time. That would be good, so that at least you consider the people, you know, working that you know, that starts late, or maybe that have to, you know, their travel time as well from other location. So you need to be able to consider that. And also, if you are going to have, and the materials that you are going to actually use for the workshop as well, you need to make sure you have all this, because if you're having the workshop, I will expect you to have sticky notes, post-it notes, to have, you know, separate, different ones, you know, to have as many as possible, you know, in the room where you're having your workshop, because they may need to use it to write your requirements or to write things down. So I will expect you to have your post-it notes. I will expect you to have some pens, because it's not everybody that comes to meeting that usually, you know, come with their pen or pencils. So I will provide pens as well, just in case if anybody comes in and don't have pens, so they will not be saying, oh, let me go to the reception and go and get a pen. So you have, you know, spare pens available for people, you know, to be able to use to write. And your flip charts, definitely, because when you are doing your workshop, most times definitely you will need that flip chart, except if you are using a whiteboard. Even if you are using a whiteboard, sometimes you still use your, you know, you still need that flip chart as well. So you have your flip chart, and you have your flip chart, and you have your this thing as well. You have your flip chart, you have your pen. So make sure all the materials that you need is you have that available as well. And that's so just make sure all the materials that you need, you get everything, you prepare. So that's for the workshop. Now you have all those things, you've invited them. Now this is the day of the you are having the workshop. So you facilitate the workshop. Like I said, nobody's going to do that. So what you need to do, introduction. You start with introduction. Introduce yourself. So because you may have, you know, 3 BAs, assuming that you even have 3 BAs, you know, in the room, so definitely they want to know who you are. So you need to introduce yourself. And if you happen to be the only one facilitating the workshop, you introduce yourself. Oh, my name is Janet Smith. I'm a BA, I'm working on this, I'm working on the let's say the CRM, and we are here to be able to discuss this requirement, to gather the requirements, and you just introduce yourself and you give them a bit overview of what you're trying to achieve and what you want to do, during the session. And you can introduce that time. You can even use the opportunity, to actually tell them about the materials that you have in place, that, okay, what we are going to do, I'm going to divide you. We are going to break out into 5 different groups, maybe group of 4. Then you can tell them, oh, we have a post-it note that you are going to use to write. I will expect you to use maybe pink for thing, or post-it note, pink color, maybe blue to write your to-be requirements, yellow to write your current requirements. You just try to explain to them, to give them a bit of introduction of what you will be doing. So just overview, high level. Yeah, so you can do your introduction. Now once you finish your introduction, then you can also tell them to introduce themselves as well, because that would give them the opportunity for each stakeholder to know, or we sitting near them, the departments as well, because there are some people, assuming that they are coming, maybe you have different locations. People have come from different locations, and they may not even know one another. So it's an opportunity to get to know each other, to know them as well. Then they will be able to know. From there, you'll be able to know you have maybe marketing team in the room, you have sales team in the room, you have the finance team in the room, you have, the technical team in the room. So, it's an opportunity for you to even know the departments or the areas that has been captured, or the representative, or the area that each person represents. So get them to introduce themselves then. Now we finish the introduction. So you give them the rules as well, depending on, like what I said earlier, what are the things that you expect them, if there's any guidelines that you want to provide for them, for the workshop, then you can also mention it as well. Then the objectives as well, like I mentioned earlier, the outcome, what you are trying to achieve. Okay, you may say, for example, what I want us to be able to come up after this session or after this workshop, I want us to be able to map our to-be process, how we want the process to work, how we want the process, our to-be process, how we want our proposed process, to be. So then you can even say, I want to understand, at the end of the session, I want to understand all your pain points. I want to have everything written down. At the end of this workshop, I want to be able to gather all the requirements from finance team. I want you to give me your requirements, So you just tell them, the outcomes and the objective of the workshop. That will, help them to, to be thinking about what they're going to say or what they're going to add, their contribution as well. And also, you walk through the materials. I've mentioned that earlier: post-it note, flip charts, pen, everything, whatever materials that you have, in the room there, you mention it so that they will be familiar with that. So then, now you've done the introduction. You've showed them the materials, you've mentioned, you stated the objectives and the outcomes. It's not time to get to work. So definitely you will not be standing. You will be standing rather. You will not be sitting down. So because you are the one facilitating, then you can start. How do you, depending on what you have on your agenda. For example, let's assume, okay, now we want to, I understand that we want a new system and we are looking into a CRM system. But before we go into CRM system, could you please tell me your pain points? I want to know the problem that you are facing. I want to know what you are actually trying to eradicate. I want to understand the current problem. From there, you start getting, that's the task. You start getting them to think. They can be calling out, which we are going to talk about, how they are going to be giving you the responses anyway. So, that's the task. So you can tell them, okay, they now need to get to work. maybe you ask them, that is what you want them to list all the problems. Then they will start doing that. Then maybe after that, you may say, okay, now I want you to, group yourself in 5, come up with what you want, how you want the new system to be, what are the functionality or the features or what you want to have in the new system. Everyone will be working. So now, what we are going to discuss later on, I will try and make sure we cover it today, is how that is going to work. Are they going to be shouting it to you? Are they going to be writing it down? Are they going to be, are they going to do brainstorm together within their, definitely we'll discuss that. So that's the challenge. You carry out your challenge. Then the materials, depending on the materials, I think we've mentioned, okay, I think, so maybe you are going to, maybe you have handouts or maybe post-it note, depending. Then after, assume that you've finished all the tasks. So you now play back. Okay, we've done all these things. Thank you for your help. Thank you for your contribution and participation. Really appreciate it. You try to, appreciate as well, because you need to make sure you appreciate them. You appreciate their time. Fine, despite the fact they are being paid for it, but at least at the same time, you need to be polite. Then you play back all the requirements or what you've done for that day, just like a summary. So you can say, now we've mentioned that we have a list, all the pay points have been listed. Now we have about 30 pay points or 15 pay points. You can just, do summary that, okay, it's not user friendly. It takes 38 hours to load. It's very slow. You can just do like overview run through of what you've done. Then you can do the process map, assuming that maybe you've documented the process map as well. You can do, so you do the playback, all the things that you've discussed at everyone have discussed at the workshop. You try to do playback, then the next step is now for you to, that means the meeting has finished. You finished the workshop. You finished the workshop, so disperse everyone. So what you need to do now is what happens after the workshop. Make sure, because you've gathered some requirements, it's not that you write all the requirements. You may not be able to write all the requirements or the process map that you've mapped during the workshop. It may not be possible to do that within 72 hours. But what you can do is to send like an email at the back of that meeting. Maybe that's why I said try to send it out maybe within 72 hours, just to say, oh, thank you for attending the workshop 2 days ago on Wednesday, 23rd of January. Oh, these are the following actions. Sales team to send documents to, so you mentioned the BA will document the requirements and will send it out for review by 3rd of February. Just like the actions that you've actually took away, then definitely you can just let them know, so that at least that will actually help them to know that you want to keep that momentum, to make sure they are carried along as well with the process. So then that's why I said, okay, you highlight the key decision that has been made, the actions and the tasks as well. Then, if there's anything that you need to follow up, maybe there are some people that need to carry out some actions or some tasks, they need to do some things, you make sure you follow up. And once you have that, and at the same time, you start doing your documentation, because that's like a form of of requirement gathering from you. So you have a lot of requirement that you need to document. You have a lot of process maps that you need to map. You need to put down in a document or video. So because you are now back to work, you need to start doing your documentation. And that is that for the workshop. So the workshop techniques, like I mentioned earlier, because when you are having the workshop technique, there's what we call brainstorming. So it's a way that, like for example, if I say, could you please, I will just tell all the stakeholders in the room, I can just say, okay, now, could you please give me the list of pain points when I say pain points, I'm talking about the problems. Could you give me the pain points? List out the pain points for me. So brainstorming is a way whereby each one of the stakeholders, they will be shouting out there. So some people will just be calling, say, oh, it's not flexible. Another person may say something, is a way that they will calling out their ideas about that theme that you're actually talking about, so which is probably pain points. So it's a way that they can, but as they are calling it for you, you will be writing it down. So if you are using a whiteboard or a flip chart, you will be writing it. They will be calling it out for you, and you will be writing it down. So that's the way that you can. And at the end of the day, you have, you can now build on that, all the points that they've given to you. So that's brainstorming. And what we say brainwriting, so each one of them as well, instead of them shouting it out and say, oh, this, blue, yellow, they will just write it down. They will write down their ideas in the post-it notes. That is why you need all those sticky notes in the room, so they can write their ideas or their pain points. They can write it down, on the sticky notes, and they can put it in maybe you have a wall, or you have or maybe a table. You just want them to put it in there. So, but there will be nothing like shouting it to you or maybe calling it out for you. So they will write it. So that's the brainwriting. And you have the round robin as well. That is where you have, for example, maybe you ask them in turn. You can say, okay, can we start from you? So turn by turn. So they will be calling out those ideas of the pain points to you as well. So then the post-it exercise is where people write their ideas as well. It could be for problem. It could be for requirements. So it's writing it on a sticky note. So now, it's different from the brainstorming whereby you will be writing it on the flip chart, but the post-it exercise is whereby they have to write it on the post-it in notes, the sticky notes. So that's what we call post-it exercise. So you can have a board or maybe a word that you can say, okay, everyone, can you put all your requirements here? Can you put all your problems this side? Can you put all this thing in the north, this one in the south? Just so that's the exercise of the post-it exercise, because they have to get up and it's just a way of interacting as well. And when they're writing the post-it note, so it's like each point would be like, if you have 5 requirements, if I have 5 requirements, I'll write 1 requirement. And those are the things that you may even tell them, because some people may not know. So you may tell them that when you are writing this, please, could you write your requirement, just 1 requirement on 1 sticky note. So it will be sticky, each requirement per sticky note. So I don't want 2 requests. So like if you have 20, that means I know that that's 20 requirements. So that could be even one of the guidelines that you would have informed them during the introduction as well. So that's the post-it exercise. And you have the breakout groups. So the breakout groups is where you actually have them in different groups. You may group them, maybe like if you have, for example, you have about 20, you may say you want to group them in maybe 5 groups. So you just want them to be able to work together. They will work as a group, so not individual. So instead of them, so they may come up and they may just have instead of them writing individually, so they would just collaborate together in that group and come up with whatever tasks you actually, give to them to actually do as well. So it's just a way for the group to collaborate together. Then they can discuss and brainstorm as well and write what you actually want them to discuss. And I think for that, and that is that on the workshop techniques. And so we have, I know we have about qualitative techniques and quantitative techniques as well. So which you can read up on that. So yeah, you can read up on that. So, and next week, I'm just going to give like overview of this, the business process modeling. So now we've finished our requirements gathering. Assuming that we've done the interview, we've done the workshop, and we now have all our requirements. We have all our, sketches and everything. So now we now need to get to work, because now we finished. Now we now say I want to start my documentation. So how do I start my documentation? I know I'm going to write to document my BRD. If it's going to be high level or low level, we are going to do that. And so the business process modeling. So what is a business process? So I'm just going to quickly run through this because I know we've got just a few minutes left. And also just to let you be aware, because next week I'll be talking on this business process modeling, and I will want to make sure we finish it next week. I mean, this particular topic, I want to make sure we finish that next week. So it could be we will probably maybe finish around 9:30 if you don't really mind, because I would not want to do it over 2 weeks, because now I'm going to do introduction. Next week we're going to do it, and I don't want it to run into the 5th week. So next week there is probability that we may actually, the session may run till about 9:30. So yeah, just for you, just to warn you, give you a heads up. So what is business process? Is a means of which, an organization, you want to know the organization carry out their operations. And it could be like how, the processes or the steps or the action. It could be procedures, that they have. It's just like when you say a process. What is a business? So we are now, it's just like before, you now had a business to it. So a process, like if I say a process of cooking rice. How do you boil a rice? So what's the process? So I want to know the process of boiling a rice. So then I can now say, okay, boil this. You have to buy the rice. You have to get the pot. You have to, it's step by step or actions. So that is, just, think of that in terms of business. So business process. So that is it's more or less like a sequence or flow of tasks that you perform during maybe production of a product or delivery of service. So once you just have that understanding, so process, it's just like normal or this definition. So then why do we model a process? Why do we model a process? So it's, for me, it's because if we model a process, a business analyst, I want to know how they actually carry out a particular task. I may want to know, because it helps me to understand how the operation or the activities, is being done in the organization. So because as a business analyst, they want you to document the process, to model the process. So they may have an existing, or they may not even have, they just want you to come and say, could you help us map a process on how we, or the customer journey, when they want to order for, order something on our website. So so you have to document, the sequence, the steps in which, the activities that you need to actually, and sometimes, when you actually document a process, it helps you to understand how their existing process work or how they want things to work, and you may be able to identify the problems as well. You may be able to identify the weakness, of that existing business or existing system, or how they want to implement things. So there are so many things that why you model a process. So it could be to understand the problem, know what they want, and so many reasons for that. So, but now we know what our business process, what a process is. Then we'll now talk about modeling a process. So I think for today, because we have, so I don't want to rush through this. So I think for this, I would just try and make sure we stop, here today, and next week we can just, start this in detail. So I'll just quickly go through the, messages and see what we have. So chat. So let me quickly. Okay, so just reading through this BS. Okay. So does the BA set the duration of the workshop? Yes. So the BA, we have to set the duration of the workshop, because as a BA, you are the only person that knows what you want to discuss and the outcome of the and what you are trying to achieve, the outcome that you want to get out of the workshop. So definitely the BA sets up the workshop. And also, please, is it good to practice let participants know other that will be attending the workshop? In the meeting invite, because you'll be sending the meeting invite to everyone, yes, there's no, you can do that, because you can send like a group email to everyone, so it does not really matter. So I do that. I send it to all the participants, so they will have their, they will see, all the people that will be attending. Yes, I don't send like separate email to each one of them. No, I send it. That's for workshop. That's what I do. I just send one meeting invite to every one of them. Yes, that's what I do. And also, please, how do you get back to a person that is unavoidable absence at the workshop or is a key stakeholder that you organize? Yes, you could, because if it's if the person, probably maybe you've invited somebody and the person could not make it to the office, maybe due to sickness or illness. So yes, you can have a separate interview for that person. You just let the person know what you discussed at the workshop, and try to arrange a catch up with the stakeholder. What is the difference? Yeah, post it now. Brainwriting. So because some of the, like most of these things that we've discussed, you have that also in the what's it called, in the textbook. So you can also do that. Do very senior stakeholders attend workshop with others? Yes, yes. When you say senior stakeholders, it depends. Like head of department, yes, sometimes. So, but it depends. Like the CEO, I would not expect you to invite the CEO to a workshop. No, like the COO, no, the chief operating, like all those hierarchy. Definitely, I will not. I would do one-to-one. So, but when you are talking about the manager, maybe level 3, I don't know how they grade it. But like if I'm talking about, I can invite head of department to workshop. Yes, if they are the relevant to that workshop. Yes, I can invite maybe managerial level as well. I can invite, but not like CEO or maybe directors. No, you can. I will advise you have one-to-one meeting with directors and the CEO, CO. And can workshops take place remotely due to different? Yes, some people in some organization, you have some people that maybe they work across the Atlantic. Some people are working maybe in other European countries, and they can join in via conference call, depending. Yes. So depending if it's outside London or outside UK, but if it's sort of like Scotland, some people still travel down depending on the project. But so it depends on the organization. So yeah, some people can join in remotely, but for people maybe within London, you want them to be present. So, but it now depends on the circumstances anyway. So, but if you're having a remote, then that means you need to make sure you have, the connectivity, the maybe WebEx or maybe, video conferencing for people to be able to join in, and, everything is set before you kick off the workshop. Just make sure, and the meeting room that you'll be using have all those facilities as well. So you need to consider that once you know that some people will be joining in via maybe video conferencing or conference call. So you need to make sure that room have those facilities. And also, do we need to get any any software application ready for next training? Yes, because I will be using Visio, Microsoft Visio to map the process, because that's what you will be using, so, or I will be using anyway, and definitely most organizations use Microsoft Visio, at least basic. So we'll be using, so if you can download it, if you can get Microsoft Office, Microsoft Visio, because that will help you to practice as well, because regardless of, even if I explain it to you and I demo it, you still need to be able to, do it on your own to make sure you familiarize yourself with it. You can even watch it, even if you watch it on YouTube, you still need hands-on. You need to be able to map it yourself. So if you want to practice as a business analyst, you need that software, because that is the tool that you'll be using to map your process. So I would recommend you get Microsoft Visio. You download that, so you get that installed on your laptop so that you can practice at home as well. You can practice on your own. So that will be my recommendation for that. So next week we'll be doing the business process modeling. We'll be modeling some processes. I will try, and if we have enough time, we'll try and use a scenario as well that we can map some things. And yeah. And I think yeah, that's all for tonight. Thanks so much for your time.